Hello and welcome again to the We Are the Medicine podcast. Today, my guest is Wahneta Trotter. She's a certified Ayurvedic specialist and Panchakarma specialist, receiving her formal education and training from the California College of Ayurveda. I have seen her name floating in Ayurvedic circles for years, and I'm finally getting the pleasure of having a conversation with her. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I have seen your name around. I mean, we've actually dialogued back in the day on Facebook pages and stuff. So it's really fun to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. This is one of my projects solely for fun. And it has proven that time and time again, every time I have a conversation with somebody. I'm usually quite the introvert, but I'm really enjoying just exploring the world through other people's eyes. So with that being said, one of my first questions I ask my guests is kind of talk about your life story and how you have arrived in this place that you are today.
Well, how far back do you want to go?
As far back as you want to go. We'll take whatever you've got.
Well, I would say that, and we can say this for most things that are important and impactful in our lives, that, all of the experience lead us to where we are today. And what led to my my journey with Ayurveda is again, it's a lifetime of experiences that all added up to that one singular moment where you go, that's it. That's the culmination of everything that's come before. That is the full integration of all of my experiences and skills and yearnings. So, I grew up in a family that everyone cooked. Cooking was just something that we all did all the time. My mother cooked, my father cooked, the woman that worked in our home cooked. I was always in the kitchen. Even at a young age, I was experimenting at the stove. I was experimenting with things in the oven. I just, I just loved food, and I've loved working with food. And then when I was a teenager, I was living in Spain, and I took some contemporary modern jazz dance classes with this woman who was a gorgeous woman from America, and she made us practice yoga as a part of our dance training. And there was just something about it that I loved so much. Also being a very active, very, pitta, competitive athlete person.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Always on the go, always on the move. I was either, swimming or volleyball or softball, gymnastics team, like all of it, So anyway, I got to Spain, and not a lot of those things were available in the itty bitty little village where we lived, except for this one amazing dance program. And she introduced yoga to me. And then I kept seeing it in my life, the next 10 years after that. And then one day at work, I was working at an auction house in New Orleans, and I overheard this couple talking about Iyengar yoga. And it was like something just like opened up in my mind, in my body. The Tibetans call it a bacha. It's a seed. And it was like this seed just burst open. And I went out and bought Iyengar's book, and I was a self-taught yogi for a very long time. And then I ended up moving to another very small town in the middle of Idaho. And lo and behold, there was a yoga studio there. I mean, like a yoga, like I didn't even know what that was. So like doing yoga, in my living room in New Orleans. And so I started going to this yoga studio, and it was just life-changing. And we were really lucky to have a very good teacher there. She brought in, that was like back in the day, we had Eric Schiffman and Shiva Ray and Rod, and Rodney before he, this was like right when the Gaia yoga tapes, the VHS tapes, and Gaia had done a series with Rodney Yeat and Patricia Walden. And now I remember, like, right before I moved to Idaho, I had gotten some of those tapes. And so that was like another big revelation for me. I was doing yoga at home with Rodney Yeat and Patricia Walden. And so that was really fun. And so it was kind of like right at the birth of yoga becoming a part of our daily life and becoming a part of the cultural consciousness. And and so we had a lot of really and Sarah Powers, she used to come to our studio too. We had all kinds of amazing teachers that came. And Rod Stryker was supposed to come and teach at our studio, but then he had to cancel because he was getting married. And then I saw that he was teaching at another studio that John Friend used to go to. This was back when, Anusara was just beginning. And so he was teaching at this place called Inner Harmony down in southern Utah, way up high in the mountains. Beautiful environment, small, intimate place. The other very cool thing about that place and with John Friend is that Krishna Das had just come back from India at that time. And he had just started at Jiva Mukti in New York City. And so, Kirtan was new at that time. Krishna Das was new to us at that time. And he used to come and sing at all the John Friend retreats at Inner Harmony. And back then, Wah was traveling and doing kirtan with him. We're talking like way back in the day, in the early days of yoga, the early days of kirtan, the early days of everybody in what's now, big yoga.
Right.
So it was really, really, really fun. So Rod Stryker ended up teaching at this place. And I was like, I was really looking forward to learning from him because it was apparent to me at that time that he was doing something a little different than everybody else was. So I signed up to go to this retreat at Inner Harmony. And I'd been there several times already for some of John Friend's retreats. And so I went down there and he was teaching, it was at that time, it was called Pure Yoga. And he was still with Manny Finger and Alan Finger. And it was such a revelation to have someone that just talked straight from the text. The practices that we were doing were like beyond the kind of Iyengar based Anusara, because that's really all we had at that time was Iyengar. And don't get me wrong, I love Iyengar yoga. It's not like it was the only thing. It was a great thing because it was the best foundation for really clear, clean, good, stable yoga practices. To this day, the Iyengar teachers are still the most immaculately, thoroughly trained yoga teachers out there, bar none. But anyway, so this was a little bit beyond alignment and, the universal principles of alignment that, Anusara had just kind of taken and repackaged and relanguaged and all that kind of stuff. So he was teaching something very different. And I really loved it. Loved it. We did mantra, we did, different kinds of pranayama every day for really long periods of time. It was just life-changing. It was revelatory. And so I started studying with him. The other thing that was really interesting about what he was teaching was the integration of Ayurveda, which was at the core of everything that he taught back then. And so I went to his teacher training not long after that first retreat that I did with him, and he had an Ayurvedic doctor come, and to start deepening the practices of Ayurveda and introducing us to the foundational, philosophies of Ayurveda, so on and so forth. And so she wrote the word Ayurveda on the board, and it was that bacha, it was just, it was literally literally like, I saw these books and it was like one of those moments where, the leaves were blowing in the wind. You could see all the sense. It was a cosmic moment.
Almost like a slow
Never
motion
really.
thing. It was just like,
Yeah, it was. It was totally one of those things. I don't ever really talk about it because it really just sounds so, corny and like, sure, lady.
I
But
get it. I totally
that's
get it.
kind of what really happened. It was like she
Mhm.
wrote the word on the board and then she underlined it and she turned around and she said Ayurveda. And I was like, that's it. That's my destiny. I know that in every fiber of my being. I don't know how, I don't know when, I just know that's it. So I actually started studying privately with her for 5 years and working on my own, healing path with her for 5 years. And so at some point, I was like, okay, because I really had a very embodied experience of what Ayurveda felt like for myself. Working on all the Vikrutis, getting to experience those, periods of time of Prakriti. And so once I kind I got the basics down. And Rod, I was teaching with Rod at that time. I became his teaching assistant for 6 years. And so I was exposed, all the time, to how yoga and Ayurveda's integrated teachings were so empowering, and empowered by each other,
Mm.
that I knew when the moment was right for me to go and study, to become professionally trained. And so that's what I did.
I know that moment. I know that feeling of, oh my God, that's it.
Mhm.
When I left my graphic design career and it was a free afternoon workshop for massage therapy. Within the first 3 minutes of the person speaking, I felt like my heart just leapt right out. It was just like one of those cartoons, that heart
Yeah.
beating. Yes, yes. And actually it was actually prior to that, that it's so interesting how people hear of Ayurveda first. um, or when they're practicing in Ayurvedic um, therapies, yoga always comes up first. And for me, it was no different. I think everyone that I've interviewed about it has always started with yoga, and where I was introduced to it. And she pointed me to a book um, um, by Maya Tawari. Um, and I remember buying that book and cradling it like it was you know, um, the last testament, the first testament, whatever it is. And I read it and I read it again and I kind of got it, and it didn't matter that I didn't get it. It just made me feel so good. Some of the things, I got confused a lot when I was reading it. And I'd put it away for a while, and then something would happen and it would just kind of force me to focus right back on that book. And I don't know, there's something about the word Ayurveda that just every time I hear it, every time I hear someone else say it, I just get chills. And um, I am so impressed with the long list of teachers that you have had and the fortunate events that you've been able to have in your life with all of these amazing teachers. I feel a little behind the game a little bit. I think I need to get out a little bit more. So it's an interesting segue between yoga. Everybody, I would imagine, in this day and age knows yoga. Um, Unfortunately, we're on a planet with so many people with so many different ideas of what yoga is. And I have had several conversations with people in my beautiful Norman Rockwell small town about what it is not. And I remember going to vote one day years and years and years ago, and the little ladies in white hair sitting at the table, you know, checking your name off. And as I walked by, I heard them whisper, "She's the one who does the yoga. I think it's a cult." And I heard her, of course, and I just kind of giggled. And as I walked out, I kind of leaned in. I was like, yoga is really not a cult. It's movement practices at the basis of it, really. And they're kind of like, "Oh, she heard me." And I kind of want to talk a little bit about yoga is sacred to me. Ayurveda is sacred to me because it just resonates with every fiber of my being, as you mentioned in our conversation earlier. And how can someone determine if a yoga class or even an Ayurvedic course is being taught with authenticity?
If it works.
If it works.
It's authentic, right? I mean, if you are working with an Ayurvedic practitioner and you start to see a change in your physiology, if you start to feel a change in your emotional stability, if you start to see a change in your capacity to meet the demands of your life, mentally, emotionally, physically, then you know you're in the right place. If yoga is bringing you into a greater state of sattva, of balance, of equanimity, of physical strength, I mean, let's just, put that out on the table. Yoga asana was considered and should still be considered a form of exercise. It is how the yogis of yore kept their bodies in shape so they could sit in a cave and meditate without their bodies falling apart. It brought strength, it made their bodies life, it connected their breath to their consciousness. We could just go on and on and on about that. But yes, yoga is a form of exercise, but not just that. So if you are becoming more physically strong, physically lithe, if you find that your injuries are starting to subside and the aches and pains in your body are starting to subside, and that again, you have mental, physical, emotional equanimity / sattva, it's authentic. That means it's working. The classes where people come in and they rush in and they're doing a million vinyasas and they're sweating their brains out, and then they're getting off their mat and they're grabbing their phone and they're blah, 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 blah. That's not sattvic. That's not working. That's not authentic.
So I think as a little kid, I just wanted to change the world. I wanted to make the world a better place. And I don't want to sound judgmental and critical of anyone out there who's trying to better themselves in any kind of way. But I think that when you go to any yoga class, if it's just for the sake of, I don't know, it almost feels like people are pretending to be sattvic. And they're not really reaping the amazing benefits of it. And so to understand where people are coming from and how they're showing up it used to be really stressful for me when people would come to my class and pretty much behave that way. They'd be talking until the very first gong, and then they'd start talking at the very end of it, just completely dismissing all of that. And I would think that, isn't it, the more you practice it, obviously, the better you quote unquote get at the asanas, the poses, the mantras. But I think even unconsciously, something starts to shift. And it's really important to be aware of that. You know, I'm not too keen on adding things into yoga. And I'm pretty sure you know what I mean by that, like little furry animals and those kinds of things. So it's okay that people are just doing it for exercise. It's okay because that's where they're at. I have a hope, though, that one day they'll leave a class and they won't get on that cell phone and chit chat away, and they'll just kind of, oh my God, what just happened?
Well, I believe that that the cause, the result is improperly trained yoga teachers. We have moved from a lineage-based system of yoga, of like, 8 limbs of yoga, Raja yoga, to studio-based business models of teaching, training yoga teachers. And so those are two very different things. The lineage-based is not, show up for a 200-hour certificate. It is, you go, you practice, you study, you learn, you take tests, you are, in seva to the lineage. You are taught, you're actually taught, all limbs of yoga, all 8 limbs of yoga. And then the teacher decides when the student is ready to teach, not because you showed up for 200 hours. When you have attained a certain mastery over your body, over your breath, over your mind, over all of those things, and you have, shown a level of consistency and depth of understanding of all the practices, then you get to go out and teach. It's not like that anymore. So, anybody can show up at any yoga studio now in any neighborhood, anywhere in America, and get a certificate and teach yoga. It's become big business. And some studios are doing better than others. That's not to say that not all studios, that all studios are doing that, but most are, sure, there's a little, can you, sequence a class, now teach the class, but that's such minimal training. And so then they go out in their communities and they teach classes, and they're not really truly able to convey the depth of experience that an old school kind of teacher would have imparted to their students. So they don't get to transcend, from Thomas to Rajas to Satwa, which is what we really want. We want at the end of the class to have that beautiful, just, completely harmonized experience where people walk out of the room and they're quiet and they're soft with each other, and they're like, oh, yummy,
and more than that too, I think it's a lot of it is such a preventative modality for your entire well-being when it's taught in that appropriate way.
It changes your nervous system.
Yeah.
To have that kind of regular experience, so that you're no longer emotionally triggered, so that you're no longer walking around with aches and pains and inflammation in your body. And we're taught that back in the day, you'd have the Jyotishi come to your home when you were born, And, you would get Ayurvedic herbs for inoculation, for vaccines, and you were just raised in a very different way than we're raised now. And so, that's the other kind of missing component, is the integration of all the, wisdom sciences of the Vedic culture, that really support each other, and I have a lot of my clients, if not most of them, engage with a really qualified, amazing Jyotishi, and so that you get kind of the full spectrum where you can, really start to work on all different aspects of, your consciousness.
I think too, though, especially here in America, we haven't really talked about being multidimensional beings in that way, at least in the circles that I have been in and around, specifically small town USAs. And when you start to even consider that concept, yoga and Ayurveda are such at the forefront of that. I'm losing my words here. It's not just taking a step aerobics class. It's not just sitting in church listening to someone preach to you. This is about your place in the world and what you need to expand as the universe expands. This is the law of the universe. This is what happens in the universe, right? So using these tools, these practices, to get you a clearer understanding of your physical ailments, a clearer understanding of your mental anxiety and your overwhelm. I just can't express it enough to the listener that in order for anything to shift in your life, we need to start thinking about things differently. And by this stage, you've all heard the term yoga, you've all heard of Ayurveda, you've heard of alternative medicine. And the importance of it is so that we can become better humans to serve the planet and our higher power in such a different way. And these practices, little by little by little, you're not going to change the American diet overnight. You're not going to change someone's mental state of what they think about these things overnight. But it's important that if you're going to find a class, if you're going to find a practitioner, make sure that you do your due diligence and really understand that a $99 course online for Ayurvedic certification is not okay, because there's just so much that needs to be expressed to people, that a $99 course, for 5 weeks just won't do. So you have programs. What is it? The Awakened Life? No. What is you've got a program that you work with your clients.
Oh, you're
Talk
talking
a little bit about that.
million yeyears ago, I recorded a CD, a yoga nidra CD. We were practicing yoga nidra, 25 years ago with Rod. And so at some point in the early aughts, I recorded a yoga nidra CD called Awakened Sleep, Awakened Life. So that's what you're talking about.
Okay.
I just want to say two things. I think that what you just talked about were two different things. And one of them is, the thing about Ayurveda that's so brilliant is that, it's, when you talk about multidimensional beings and so on and so forth, one of the beautiful underpinnings of Ayurveda is that it teaches us that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm, that if we can understand that we are the very building blocks of nature, then we can start to see ourselves as completely unified with it. And so it brings it down into that very embodied kind of experience, which is something that people can grasp more easily than thinking in those bigger sort of multi-dimensional terms.
Mhm.
And so that's something that I really like to focus on with my clients. And then the other thing that you were talking about was something that, well, anyway,
I was
that
kind of
thought.
all over the board. Sometimes
Oh,
that
the
happens.
$99 courses. Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, Ayurvedic education has really changed a lot over the years, and we touched on that a little bit before we started the recording. And I think that it's just a part of the evolution of everything, you know, technology wise. You know, when I went to study Ayurveda, there was the technology for online classes had not been developed. So you had, and there were only 4 schools. There was Ayurvedic Institute, Mount Madonna, California College of Ayurveda, and Kripalu. That's all you had. That was it. And so now with the advent of online classes, you know, there are a lot of people teaching courses that may not necessarily have the credentials or the chops for it. And there are a lot of, you know, these online, these $99, 120, whatever they are, that are just not, it's kind of like the 200-hour yoga teacher training thing. It's like, come on, people, like, be serious, you know. It's like that Succession scene where Logan Roy turns to his children and says, I love you, but you're not serious people. And this is a serious medicine. Okay, so take it seriously, engage in serious study, and engage in your clinical work like a serious person would.
Again, let's change the world. Let's all just get serious about, serious about our health.
Yeah.
It's just, that's really what this all comes down to. I have, in my 2 decades, 15 years of my practice, I think I believe in this stuff so much and I'm so passionate about it. I come across so um, not egotistical about it, but I see the same people with the same stuff. And it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what exercises or what lifestyle alterations or and it's hard to not take that personal, right? But they're not doing what I know would really help them. And I think, I don't know if it was a conversation with you or one that I just had, they're kind of bleeding together a little bit, but people's comfort level and convenience level is at such an all-time high that they would rather be in pain than to do any of the hard work it takes to change a habit, to change a thought, to change a belief. And I just kind of like to hear your experience or your take on that.
Yeah, you know, that's a really good point, because we did, before we hit the record button, talk about how, you know, again, going back to, you know, this online world where, you know, it's like Jeff Bezos knew that Americans were just addicted to convenience. And so he created something where everything is a couple of clicks away. You don't have to leave your sofa or your bed or your office or your chair or whatever, and you're a couple of clicks away from anything that you want. So, you know, we are a culture that has become addicted to convenience. Having said that, the people that I have worked with over the last 2 decades, well, you know, when you graduate, you're just all on fire, you're just all passion, you're just all Sanskrit, you're just all that, you're just all that, and you're just like, I know how to change the world. Come with me.
Come with me.
So, you have to learn very quickly how to be adaptable, how to recognize where the entry point is for each person. And, one of the things that you have, you have to make yoga accessible. I mean, Ayurveda accessible. We're now talking Ayurveda. So you have to make Ayurveda accessible to people. And so, when I teach, I am, I have learned how to language things in a way that people just get, they understand. You kind of have to scrub all the sophisticated Sanskrit terminology out of your work with people. It just goes over their heads, and they feel like maybe this system isn't for me because I don't get it, and it's foreign, and it's this and that. You have to learn how to talk to people in a way that they feel seen and understood, because that is the brilliance of Ayurveda, is that, again, it gives us a roadmap for people to navigate their most difficult issues, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's, all those kind of things. It gives us the roadmap, but you have to be able to explain the roadmap in a way that people go, I see it. That's my roadmap. You see me, I see it, let's do this. So it just, you have to be adaptable, and you have to know how to talk to people, and that is a skill that you learn over time, where you kind of go, okay, the gung-ho, all Ayurveda, all Sanskrit, all dosha talk, all this, that, and the other. You have to be able to use it in a way and deliver it in a way that makes people see themselves in it, where they can feel it in them. And then you have to develop what's called therapeutic alliance, therapeutic trust, where, you find that entry point for someone, and then you just give them a few little things to nibble on, just enough things that they cannot feel overwhelmed, but that is going to make a difference, that's going to make them feel better, and that they're going to trust you. And then, they come in for their follow-up, and they're like, I can't believe it, but I haven't belched. I haven't had acid reflux. I have had normal elimination, and I've been to every doctor for 5 years, and in 2 weeks, I can't believe it, and then you're like, fantastic. Let's keep working on that. And then let's work on the next thing, and so it's just a process of being able to find that sweet spot with someone, find the therapeutic alliance, know how to talk to them, know what their tolerance level is for introducing an entirely foreign system to them. So
yeah, and now that you say that, I had a revelation not too long ago, in the last year of my my becoming, my remembering, my awareness of my life and what I really want to do with it. I wanted specifically to do X, and I was using all the fancy terms. And then I realized that throughout my practice in the last several years, I've actually been doing X. I've just been calling it something different. So finding the language that is most resonant with those who aren't familiar is really key. And I just wanted to point out one specific situation that actually happened to me this morning. I've been working with a woman who had shoulder rotator cuff surgery in December of last year, and it's September now, and she's still about a month ago came to me, excruciating pain. The Western medicine didn't, the PT, all of that stuff, it just kind of made it worse. And she came to me, she said, "You're my last hope." And we did my holistic intake. We walked through her physical, what's going on. We walked through her mental state and her emotional state and her energetic state and her spiritual. And she was really kind of surprised. She said she'd worked with a holistic practitioner before, but at the end of it, she was kind of like, yeah, that was nothing I've ever gone through before. And we addressed the throat chakra and some of the things that may be contributing to the fact that her shoulder hasn't healed yet. Various things. Anyway, long story short, she came to me a month ago with 10 out of 10, sometimes 12 out of 10 pain on a daily basis. And I only see her for half an hour a day, once a week. And she walked in today with a smile so big. She's like, I'm at a 5. I'm at a 5 out of 10. Oh my God. And I'm off my pain meds and all this stuff. She's like, and I had given her one little step to do in each of those areas to address. And, you know, when I first recommended she do something about speaking her truth and saying something, I'd asked, is there something that you haven't been saying to somebody? And she said, well, actually, yes, there really is. And I said, okay, try this exercise and do this. And she kind of looked at me like, how the hell is that going to help my shoulder? I was like, you'd be surprised. And she just, the language is such a difference now with working with people when you I don't know, it was just such an amazing experience for me, because I'm like, at the end of it, and this is of course my own little self-reflection, but it's my podcast, so I can do and say whatever I want to, I guess. But I use Ayurveda. It's in my head. It's just, those are the words that aren't coming out. And so I kind of feel like I'm not dumbing down Ayurveda, but I'm needing to be relatable, because
Exactly.
I was working on her actually, and I said something about her scapula, and she's like, what the hell is my scapula? I'm like, shoulder blade, your shoulder blade. She's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, you have to meet, this whole meet people where they are, is you have to meet people where they are. She's at shoulder blade, you have to make it meaningful for them, for where they are in their experience. And so, like I said, when I teach and I'm teaching, I one of the things that I love, well, Panchakarma was a major part of my practice, is a major part of my practice, and teaching is now my most favorite thing. And when I am teaching Panchakarma and we're talking about some of the deeper concepts of Panchakarma, they're all like, I cannot believe like how you just explained that. You have to make it relatable. You have to put it in language that they understand, and that when then they go out to talk to their clients, they're going to be able to convey these new concepts, these, some people are like, I don't know, Ayurveda is just too complicated. It's like, it is and it isn't. It's, and what I tell the students is, if you are sitting with an Ayurvedic practitioner that doesn't make sense, that doesn't have logic behind every explanation that you're hearing, run. Like if there's nothing is based in logic, and it's not adding, if 2 and 2 is not equaling 4, hit the door. Because that's one of the things that I love so much about Ayurveda, is that it is the most logical system of medicine on the planet. It should all equal 4. 2 + 2 should equal 4 every single time. Every time you talk to someone, they should say, ah, yes, that makes so much sense. Now I get it. And that kind of reminds me of, when you were talking about, this client, it's funny because, for the majority of the last decade of my practice, if not longer, it's what I would call the story of the chair. People would come in and they were like, they'd sit down in the chair and they'd, they've got chronic acute conditions. They started with their GP. The GP sends them to an internist. The internist sends them to a specialist. That specialist then sends them on. Then they go to acupuncture, naturopathy, and functional medicine. And they're like 3, 5, 7, sometimes 10 or 12 years down the road. And now they're sitting in my chair and they're like, you're my last hope. And someone said to me, well, have you tried Ayurveda? And I looked up Ayurveda in my town, and here you are. What can you do for me? And what I like to tell people is that Ayurveda, as we all know, is the oldest medical system on the planet. There is nothing that the human body has thrown at Ayurveda that it doesn't have a solution for, because it makes sense, because it's got very foundational, time-tested principles that, if used properly, again, there is an entry point for everyone. There is a way to go in and resolve the most chronic acute conditions with Ayurveda. And so, the story of the chair is the story of Ayurveda. It just keeps working. So yeah, I mean, for the longest time I was, the Lyme disease person, the mystery disease practitioner. I had people that would come from Mayo, from, all these revered institutions, and they're out sitting in the chair and they're giving me the story of the chair. It's been 3 years, it's been 5 years. I was misdiagnosed. I was, had a bad surgical outcome. The medicine just made me feel sicker. The whatever just made things worse. And here I am 7 years down the road. What can you do for me?
Yeah. Like, well, how much time you got? Yes. Because obviously, yeah, it's just I applaud the work that you're doing. Thank you for coming forward with all of your wonderful energy and your ways of helping my listeners understand Ayurveda a little bit more. I hope to continue the Ayurvedic talk. Who knows? Maybe I'll be renting a billboard soon in my small town and just put the word Ayurveda and my phone number on it. I think people are really coming to a place where they're realizing how ineffective our Western medicine system can be for any real chronic issues, actually, because all we're doing is allowing the same old ways of treating things. And I do know that people are interested in it. I think it just takes a little prodding. It just takes a little more hand holding, really, and proof. I think people are not seeing proof that it works.
Well, I think that comes back to the whole idea of education and training too, where that has just changed so much. And I don't think that the online programs are doing Ayurveda any favor at all. And all the schools now have online classes, and I've recently launched a mentorship program, and it's kind of stunning to me that all the students that I have worked with have a basic major gap, or a big gap in basic fundamental principles of Ayurveda. Whether it's like not knowing the subdoshas and the dhatus after years of being in a program, or not even understanding the rasavirya vipak of herbal medicine, of food, of gunas, and how it all interacts. We have got to change how we're educating practitioners and go back to the basics, go back to showing up in classrooms with teachers and other students, so that, the learning, the sampradaya, the chest to chest, learning is the best form of learning. And again, coming back to this, I like you, but you need to be a serious person, because you are dealing with people's most vulnerable, like people come in their most vulnerable places in their life seeking help. And if you are not well educated and prepared, and if your internship program is insufficient, then, you are going to be doing more harm than help to someone. And I am, we talked about this. There's another practitioner in America, and she and I are just constantly screaming about this. But the training has got to be better. We have to get rid of these online programs. I know people are going to be mad as heck at me for saying that, because again, coming back to convenience, they want everything to be convenient, but you can't be a serious healthcare provider sitting in your living room with your phone in your hand, checking how many likes did I get on that, while your teacher is talking on a screen. You're not serious, and you should not be in healthcare, because as much as we want to get all woo-woo and new agey about how cool it is that we're working with a spirit-based medicines is so cool, at the end of the day, you're a healthcare provider. People are coming to you for answers and solutions and resolution of things that they've been dealing with for years. Many of them, some of them not so much. Some of them are coming in, because they need therapies, and I also think that every practitioner needs to be trained in the Ayurvedic body therapies, because nothing compares to the Ayurvedic body therapies. Nothing. And you can take care, like, especially the Vata folks that are going to come in your door, because when you start talking about making changes, your Vata little friend is going to be like, but I love being spontaneous. I live my life like this on purpose. And, routine is a 4-letter word, but I love popcorn for dinner.
Or the kaphas who don't want to move.
Well, the kaphas who are barely going to make it through your door, but you put a Vata person on your table and you give them an Abhyanga and you give them a Shirodhara. Now they're going to come back. Now they're ready to do the work. Now they're ready to tackle the deeper issues in their nervous system and in their gut and, all that stuff. So I just think that we have to do a much better job at educating and training and doing internship, clinical internship, rigorous clinical internship. Because like I said, I have this mentorship program now, and I am just seeing all kinds of big, frightening gaps in education and training,
Yeah, and the people that will suffer are the people that we are trying to help the most, and then they're going to dismiss it.
They're not even going to get to the suffering point. They're just going to be like, what is this Ayurveda stuff? Geez, no, it's not for me. I mean, it's just it is just demeaning to the profession of Ayurveda, and it's not putting it into the context of serious healthcare sciences.
Well, do you offer in-person study at the moment? Because I
I
think
do
I've,
not. I do not. I'm doing a mentorship program that's a one-on-one. I work with them one-on-one for an hour every week. And then every other week we have a group call with other Ayurvedic doctors. Like in this last group, we had Rich Fisher of Herbs of Ayurveda. He was the head of the herb department at CCA when I was there. And then he went out on his own and has Herbs of Ayurveda. And so practitioners all over the country, he has an apothecary of over 300 herbs, and he custom formulates Ayurvedic medicines, ghees, oils, tablets, all of it for practitioners around the country. He ships directly to the clients or, to the practitioner, whichever they want. So we had Rich. We had Esther Seegers, who is a really interesting Vedic astrologer because she really works more deeply with medical astrology and afflictions in the chart that deal with people's healthcare, with their, issues, also with their mental issues. She's really very focused on that. And so again, the three wisdom science of the Vedic culture, Ayurveda, yoga, and Jyotish, I wanted everybody to have some better understanding of how we can, integrate those. We had David Crow.
oh, nice.
We had David Crow as one of our guest teachers. And we had one of my favorite teachers from India, Dr. Vanashri Aital. And so we went deeper into mental health issues, autism, ADD, bipolar, some of the things that, we're really having to tackle in a more holistic way for people. One of the things that, you touched on was, Western medicine, people are seeking alternative ways for healing. And because Western medicine is failing so many people, that it's not just failing people in terms of being able to resolve their health issues. The third leading cause of death in America is something called iatrogenic disease, which is medical mistakes. Medicine issues from medicine and bad surgical outcomes. So, when you start looking at the things and, the story of the chair, a lot of the time has just been iatrogenic fallout, where the medicines are doing more harm than help. And that's where, you work with people for an extended period of time and you start preparing them for panchakarma. Because that is one of the only ways that you can break down fat soluble constituents in the body, where we can start working on cleaning the lymph, cleaning the liver, cleaning the blood, working on the mind, working on the neuroendocrine system, working on stress-related diseases. You get people on the table for a panchakarma, and if it's done right, if it's the right client, the right therapies at the right time, it's life-changing.
Yes, it is. I think that's my favorite work to offer. Is I work, I don't know why my words are just not rolling off my tongue today. Anyway,
I got plenty for you.
Good, I'll just use yours then. No, and I've said it to probably all of my clients at one point that the Ayurvedic treatments that I offer they're just so divine in nature. And not only that, they're effective, so effective.
There's nothing out there like Ayurvedic therapies. And that's why I'm like, your practice is incomplete without the Ayurvedic therapies. I'm sorry. People are going to be hating me for saying that.
But it's true. It's true. And
offering Ayurvedic therapies in your clinical practice,
one of my favorite stories, I have had the honor and the pleasure of working with a it's almost four, 3-generation family for the last decade. And 4 generations, actually. I take it back. Yeah, it's been 4 generations of this family. And this one girl who's, God, I think she's 15 now. I was seeing her when she was 5, 6, 7, and 8 because she was having debilitating anxiety. And she came to me once a week for a 20-minute mini Shirodara. And in the summer, we did rosewater Shirodara because it was just too hot and sticky. And she would overheat real easily in the heat. And we did this for probably, I'm guessing about 2 years, really, because it was really serious. She's a beautiful little soul that would see colors and auras and could not be in large groups because she would see this and it would just
Overwhelm.
Total overwhelm. And it was probably one of my most favorite interactions, as I have this little being in my hands, and I would end it with the cranial hold. And one day I found a toy dog in her hair. But anyway, my long story short is I would like to believe that we did some really great work together, me and this little one, because today she is a thriving, independent, funny, just adorable teenager. And you would never have known that she had these issues so long ago.
That's the power of Ayurvedic therapies. When I talk to people about coming in for, let's say, a bliss therapy, an Abi, a Shiro, and a Swedana, I'll go into all the beautiful description of Abhyanga. I don't hard sell the Shiro. I give them just enough to make them believe that this is a good thing, because when you talk about Shirodari, I'm going to pour, there's going to be a continuous stream of oil poured on your forehead. It's going to activate your pituitary. It's going to, 2 hemispheres of the brain, bring coherence to the 2 hemispheres. You can't oversell it because Shirodara is different for everyone and it's different every time you do it. And there, you don't want to say, you can go into an altered state of consciousness, because they're going to be like, sure, lady, you're going to pour oil on my head.
Do I want that?
You're in an altered state of consciousness and my nervous system is going to heal and, my brain's going to work, but, but we know the benefits of it, and we know the benefits of it over an extended period of time with regular application, because it will radically transform the nervous system. And it will, all the vatas, all the neurological conditions, all that, all the pittas, we know what it's going to do. And so, I'm a big proponent of getting a full education and making sure full education means learning how to do the Ayurvedic therapies, because there's only so much that doing consultations and talk therapy is going to do for people, especially when you have Shirodara alone in your medical system to offer people, got to.
Yeah, it's just the most delicious thing I have ever experienced in my life, and I continue, and I do it on myself because I don't have anybody local to do it with me. So, yeah, it's I just can't talk enough about it, and I'm learning more and more how to integrate these beautiful therapies into pretty much almost all of my sessions now.
Yeah, it's a big part of what I do, because like I said, before, sometimes I'll even, especially if I have someone who's, Vata Prakruti, Vata Vikruti, and I know when I start saying the word routine to them, if they're physically not out the door, they're mentally out the door.
Mhm.
For, whether it's no, they don't want to make those changes in their lives, or if it's just that making a change is going to overwhelm them so much that they're scared to do it. I won't even talk to them about their treatment plan until after I've gotten them on the table for 3 bliss therapies in a row. Now you can have a normal conversation with a Vata person. They're going to be like,
Oh, yeah.
let's talk. I'm ready for this. I can do this. Thank you. Thank you. Because the person that I was before 3 days ago, before those therapies, would not have been able to have this conversation with you. And we're like, we know it's called Vata. But again, that's the brilliance of Ayurveda. It's like, we know, so we can adapt how we communicate with someone. We adapt to how we talk to a Vata person. We know that the best client we're ever going to have is that Pitta Kapha person, because, you give a treatment plan to a Pitta person, they're going to be like, I'm going to make this thing my bitch. I'm going to do this better than anybody you've ever seen. And then they've got all that good kapha, endurance and consistency, engendering consciousness to just like take it, run with it, get across the finish line. They're going to be like, how'd I do? We're like, pull your jets, get on the table. You did a great job, but you're in way too much competition with yourself. So again, that's the thing about Ayurveda. Just, there's, no matter which way you look at it, you know how to treat people because of the, the brilliance of Ayurveda. We know how to talk to people. We know how to work with people. We know how to, calm or motivate, or, what is a person's tolerance level for change? What is going to be the best, thing for them to start with? So,
Beautiful. Well, thank you. We are coming to the end of our session, and I try to end these with something a little lighthearted, or something that people can really hang on to. So if someone listening has never gone to been to anyone with Ayurvedic training, how would you coach them? What would you say to them? I know we just spent an hour talking about this, but what would be the last thing that you might drop in their ear for trying out Ayurveda?
well, I mean, it's the oldest medical system on the, it's the longest continuously practiced medical healthcare system on the planet.
But
There
but it's from India. How can I trust it? That's what they say to me.
Well, because it is, according to the
oldest.
World Health Organization, a complete medical system, meaning that there is a complete system that allows us to treat everything that the human body can throw at it. It is a holistic medical system. We work with diet and lifestyle. We have Ayurvedic therapies that are unparalleled in the world of healthcare, of holistic healthcare, of natural therapies. We are not going to harm the body or the mind in any way, shape, or form in the hands of a qualified practitioner. We know exactly how to treat the human body. there is nothing that's in your kitchen right now that we couldn't walk into and say, here's your medicine. There, we have, 1,000 different herbal formulations to work with. It's just new to you. And so if you're interested, let's sit down and talk. If you need to talk to someone who has already been through, an Ayurvedic constitutional balancing program, here are a number of different things. And here's one of the other great things about Ayurveda is that Ayurveda looks at each person as being a completely unique person. And so everything that we do for you is custom designed for you. There is no one person there's no other person exactly like you. And so there is no one treatment plan that, works for everyone. So we sit down, there's a 9-page intake form. I'm going to ask you 1 million questions. It's going to take about 2 hours. And then we're going to meet for a report of findings. And we're going to address everything. And then we're going to find the sweet spot for you to start your healing program so that, you start seeing successes and changes every single week. And, this kind of one-on-one attention, this kind of custom tailored medicine is unique in the healthcare world, and it works.
Do you think, sorry, I keep coming back to this and I don't know why. I guess we're just not done yet. People aren't used to being asked all these questions. People aren't used to being treated like their person matters, like their being matters.
That's why Ayurveda is so needed. Right?
But that's why it's so uncomfortable for people to want to go through it and to stick with it, I think. It's not, they're not used to being cared for in such a way. And that's kind of the thing that at least I'm trying to promote, at least through a lot of these podcasts and everything, is that, yes. And where are you in your body now? How many more medications have you had to take? Like, how much more pain and suffering can you go through before you realize that you deserve to be heard and to be seen fully in every aspect of you, and not just from the surgery or from an illness that was, passed down through your family generation. Like, I don't think people just aren't used to being treated this nice.
Yeah, and that's why they keep showing up. They're not used to being cared for.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, like I was saying before, you develop therapeutic alliance, you develop therapeutic trust with people because they know they are actually being cared for. They're not, some person isn't just running into the room, all frenetic, and, you get 5-10 minutes and you get a scribble on a pad and they're out the door again. No, we're looking at them, from a 360 perspective, inside and out. And, they're there because they're ready for it. They may not consciously want to admit that, but they're there because they're ready for it. They're there because they need it. And so that's why, being a skilled clinician, and I like to use those terms. I don't like using new agey terms because that's what people are looking for. They're looking for a serious person who's been clinically trained properly so that they can get comfortable with the process, with you, with trusting that they're actually healing. And so, I think that what just keeps coming back around to trust.
I agree.
Being a person that other people can trust is the most important thing.
Yes. And to end on, I'm going to go there one more time. The $99 course that you can get your certification for Ayurveda, you would never, ever go to someone who put a shingle out as a medical doctor who took a $99 course.
No, you
For
wouldn't.
6 months. You would never go or trust another person who did that. So when you're going to anyone new for your healthcare needs, listeners, listen up, is that you really need to pay attention to the language that's being used around that person. You need to question a little bit about where they went to school, about how long they've been in school, and if it was actually an in-person class or if it was an online course only, because it really makes a difference, the type of care you are going to get.
100%.
So with that, I want to thank you, Wahneta, for spending some time with me today, finally getting to actually have a conversation with you. You inspire me so much more than I ever thought you could with Ayurveda today. I am just, it's coming out my pores right now. Thank you so much for showing
Thank
up today.
you. It's really, truly been an honor and just so much fun to talk to you. And, we know, we have a passion for Ayurveda. We could keep going for hours, but,
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
You're welcome. And if anyone wants to reach out to Wahneta, her information is going to be in the show notes and everywhere that the podcast or this YouTube video is being shown. So take care of yourselves.